My name is Anna Bennett, and I'm 30 years old. By most accounts, I thought I had my life and my relationship with Ethan completely under control. I'm an emergency nurse, which means long shifts, unpredictable crises, and a constant adrenaline rush that never really leaves you. I thrive on helping others, on fixing problems no one else can, but I never expected the chaos would find me at home, in my personal life, through something as trivial as a phone notification. Ethan Parker, my boyfriend of 2 years, had always been supportive. He worked in IT consulting, often long hours like me, but he understood when duty called, or at least I thought he did. We lived in separate apartments, alternating weekends together. His calm presence was my anchor, or at least it used to be. Our conversations often drifted toward the future, moving in together, vacations, little routines, the mundane details of life we thought we were building together. Everything seemed normal. Or maybe it only seemed normal because I hadn't been paying close enough attention. It was a Friday evening when everything began to unravel. Our hospital had a client, a high priority case, that needed immediate attention. I texted Ethan around 6 o'clock p.m. to let him know I wouldn't be able to make it over until at least 10 o'clock p.m. He responded casually, "Okay, love. I'll be here when you get home. Miss you already." Standard stuff. I pictured him lounging with takeout, maybe binge-watching some show, waiting for me in the quiet comfort of our shared routine. That's what I thought was normal. By 9:30, I was still troubleshooting a critical issue with a patient's chart, my hands raw from the day's procedures, and my phone began to explode with notifications. At first, I ignored it. Nothing matters more than a patient in crisis. But the buzzing didn't stop. Emails, texts, social media alerts from Instagram, Facebook, even LinkedIn. Friends, colleagues, and my sister were tagging me, sending screenshots. Confused, I finally checked. And there it was. Ethan had posted on Instagram. The image was carefully composed. Him sitting on his couch in the dim glow of a lamp, hair tousled, looking heartbroken. The caption read, "Heartbroken and alone again tonight. When your partner chooses work over you every single time, you start to wonder if you even matter." I froze. My heart pounded, not from empathy, but from disbelief. Every fiber of my being screamed that this was wrong, that it wasn't the Ethan I knew. Over 200 likes and dozens of comments had already piled up, friends encouraging him to leave me, family expressing sympathy, and there I was, in the middle of a hospital shift, completely blind to what he was portraying. A rush of heat rose to my cheeks. My hands shook. Was this a misunderstanding? Was he serious? But then the comments started rolling in, and the disbelief gave way to a creeping, bitter anger. I reminded myself he knew why I was late. He knew it wasn't a choice. Every emergency, every client or patient issue had a reason. This wasn't routine neglect. This was life and death. And yet the story he was telling the world was that I didn't care about him. I tried to push the thoughts away and refocus, but every time I typed notes or checked vitals, my phone vibrated again. Screenshots of his post, concerned messages from friends, even my own mother asking if I was okay. The weight of it pressed against me. It wasn't just a post. It was a DNA-tion, a narrative he'd built without asking me, without giving me a chance to explain. By 10:15, the emergency was resolved. I washed my hands, scrubbed raw from the day, and walked through the quiet hallways of the hospital. My car sat outside, headlights cutting through the dark as I slid in, exhausted. I tried to plan my next move. Should I confront him immediately? Should I wait? My chest ached with a cocktail of fatigue, frustration, and confusion. The drive to his apartment was a blur. Streetlights flickered, the hum of the tires against asphalt a metronome to my spiraling thoughts. I rehearsed what I would say. I could feel a confrontation coming, but I also knew I had to see him first. Pulling into his complex at 10:40, I noticed something odd. His car was there, yes, but the apartment was dark. No warm light spilling into the parking lot, no TV glow, nothing. If he were home, heartbroken, surely some light would be on. I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder. Still silence. My calls went straight to voicemail. Every instinct in me screamed that he had intentionally ignored me. I waited 5 minutes, knocked twice more, called once again. Declined. My chest tightened, disbelief mingling with a rising, bitter fear. I backed away, breathing shallow, mind racing. But then I remembered something that might clarify the situation. Ethan had installed a Ring doorbell months ago, and he had added me to the app so I could see when he or visitors arrived. A small piece of hope flickered. Maybe I was overreacting. I pulled out my phone and opened the app. Scrolling back to 5:30 p.m., right after I had texted him, I saw him leave. Dressed carefully, hair neat, stepping into the night with a smile I would have recognized anywhere. He wasn't sitting at home, lonely. He was heading somewhere not alone. I fast-forwarded. Around 6:15, a car pulled up. Ethan's ex-girlfriend, Vanessa, arrived, followed by two other women, laughing and carrying drinks. They went inside, the door clicking shut behind them. Later, around 7:30, they left together, energetic and carefree, only returning at 9:50. 10 minutes before I had arrived. He wasn't heartbroken. He wasn't alone. I sat in my car, processing it all, the dim dashboard lights casting long shadows across my face. Every second of the footage, every laugh and clink of glasses felt like a punch in the chest. I had been portrayed as the villain while he played the victim. The night stretched ahead of me as I drove home, quiet, angry, and stunned. This wasn't just a post, it was a trap, and I had just realized I was caught in it. The next morning, I woke up before my alarm, restless. My body ached from the shift, but it wasn't fatigue that kept me tossing and turning. It was Ethan's post, the smirk in the Ring footage, and the gnawing question, why would he do this? I tried to brush it off, telling myself that maybe there was some misunderstanding, some innocent explanation I hadn't seen. But deep down, I knew I had to face him. I couldn't let this lie linger and grow in the shadows, poisoning everything I thought we had built together. By the time I drove to his apartment that afternoon, a storm of emotions churned inside me. Hurt, anger, confusion, and an unsettling sense of betrayal. Every step toward his door felt heavier than the last. I rehearsed my words, calm, precise, factual. I needed to see this through without letting anger cloud judgment. I reached his door and paused. His apartment was still dark. The blinds were drawn, no sign of movement inside. I knocked. Nothing. I called his number. Straight to voicemail. Declined. My stomach sank. I stood there, fists clenched, trying to calm the rage threatening to erupt. He had gone out. He had lied to the world, made himself the victim, and ignored me in the process. I remembered the Ring footage, the same app I had used last night, initially hoping to clear up confusion, now held the truth. My hands trembled as I opened it. At 5:45 p.m., he left the apartment, dressed carefully, hair neat, a jacket draped over his arm. Not a single sign of sadness, not a trace of the heartbreak he'd claimed. He walked down the steps, got into his car, and drove away. At 6:15, Vanessa and two other friends arrived, laughing, carrying drinks, a sense of giddy anticipation surrounding them. They went inside together, filling the apartment with energy and noise. I fast-forwarded. 7:30 p.m., the group leaves together, talking, laughing, carefree. Returning at 9:50, a few minutes before I had arrived last night, they stumble slightly, giggling uncontrollably. And then, silence. Lights off, door closed. The reality hit me like a wave. He had crafted a narrative for social media. The heartbroken, lonely boyfriend was a performance designed to draw attention, sympathy, and control the perception of everyone who saw it. The truth, caught in digital evidence, told a completely different story. Sitting in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles whitened, I felt a strange mix of rage and clarity. Every single word of his post was a lie. Every tear he pretended to shed online was a mask, and I had proof. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This was no longer about confusion. It was about confronting the deception, demanding answers, and reclaiming the narrative he had stolen from me. I replayed the footage again, slower this time, observing every laugh, every gesture. The energy he had projected, carefree, playful, alive, contrasted sharply with the digital persona he had created of being abandoned, miserable, and victimized. I realized then that I couldn't simply react impulsively. I needed a plan. Every interaction, every word in the confrontation would matter. The ring footage was undeniable. No excuses, no misinterpretations. As I sat there, the city lights reflecting off the dashboard, my phone buzzed. Notifications from concerned friends, family, even colleagues who had seen Ethan's post poured in. Their messages were sympathetic, questioning, confused. But I didn't respond. I needed to focus. Anna Bennett, I told myself, you are not the villain here. You have evidence. You have clarity. And now it's time to confront the person who betrayed not only your trust, but the reality you shared. I finally stepped out of the car, feeling the weight of the evening ahead. The confrontation would be intense, emotional, and potentially shattering. But I had no choice. The truth demanded to be faced. And in that quiet, cinematic pause, the empty streets, the faint hum of traffic, the lingering sense of betrayal, I made a vow. I would see this through, no matter how difficult, no matter what consequences lay ahead. The night wasn't over, it had just begun. By the time I reached Ethan's apartment later that afternoon, my hands were still trembling, not from exhaustion, but from the anticipation of facing him. I had replayed the footage a dozen times in my mind, imagining every possible reaction he might have. Calm, factual, I told myself. Nothing else would serve me now. When he opened the door, the first thing I noticed was the faint smirk that lingered, a trace of the performance he had put online. His casual posture suggested innocence, but I wasn't fooled, not anymore. Anna, he said, feigning surprise, you're home early. I need to talk to you, I said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. My voice was steady, but the tension beneath it made the room feel charged, electric. He closed the door behind him. About what? I didn't hesitate. About Friday night. About your post. About the story you told everyone. Friends, family, even colleagues, while you weren't even at home. His expression faltered, just for a moment. Anna, it wasn't what you think. I let him speak for 2 sentences before cutting him off. I saw the ring footage, every single detail. You left at 5:45, met Vanessa and your friends, laughed, drank, came back 10 minutes before I arrived. You weren't lonely. You weren't heartbroken. And yet, you posted online as if I had abandoned you. For a split second, the air was so thick I could almost see it pressing down on us. Ethan's eyes flicked toward the floor. Anna, you can't just... I can, I interrupted, my voice low and dangerous, but controlled. Because this wasn't just a post, it was a lie. A narrative you created, a story designed to manipulate everyone who saw it. Why did you do it? He hesitated, and in that silence I saw the truth flicker. Then came the confession. Slow, reluctant, almost ashamed. It wasn't really about you being at work, he muttered. I wanted attention from Vanessa. I felt the air leave my lungs. Ethan's ex, Vanessa, the one coworker he'd casually mentioned before. Attention? My voice cracked, anger rising. You made me the villain, humiliated me online, and for what? For some coworker? He tried to justify it. I didn't think it would get out of hand. I wanted her to see that I mattered, that someone noticed me. I couldn't believe it. My hands shook as I clenched them into fists. You didn't just want her to notice you. You posted a lie publicly using me as a prop. You lied to hundreds of people. And for what? A fantasy? A craving for attention? Ethan's face paled. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I took a deep breath, steadying the rising tide of emotion. It doesn't matter what you intended. The damage is done. The trust is gone. The narrative is shattered. I need you to leave. He tried to protest, to explain, to backtrack, saying it wasn't what it looked like, that Vanessa was just a friend. But the evidence was undeniable. His carefully curated image of suffering and loneliness had been exposed, and no excuse could undo it. I watched as reality settled over him. No performance, no smirk, no charm could hide the truth. The betrayal was raw, public, and inescapable. He left, shoulders slumped, muttering apologies that sounded hollow. And I sat there, alone in the apartment, absorbing the aftermath, the humiliation, the anger, the clarity. I didn't post anything, didn't call anyone. I just let the quiet settle around me, the city lights casting long shadows across the floor. This confrontation wasn't the end. It was the turning point. The narrative had shifted. And now the world and the people who had seen his post would soon see the truth as well. But before that could happen, I needed to process, to plan, to decide how far I would go to reclaim my story. Social media was a weapon, and he had wielded it recklessly. I had the ammunition to set the record straight, and I would. For the next few days, I didn't post a word online. I let Ethan stew in the fallout of our confrontation, and I allowed myself a fragile calm, the kind that comes after storm clouds gather, but before the lightning strikes. My phone buzzed constantly with notifications about his post. Friends, family, colleagues, all asking if I was okay, all expressing shock or anger. But I ignored them. I needed clarity, not chaos. By Tuesday, I knew enough. It was time to reclaim my story, to show the world the truth. I decided to compile the ring footage from Friday night, every frame, every timestamp, every laugh, every drink clink, into a short, factual video. No commentary, no dramatic music, just pure evidence. 5:45 p.m. Ethan leaves the apartment. 6:15 p.m. Vanessa and friends arrive, laughing, carrying wine. 7:30 p.m. The group leaves together, chatting, energetic. 9:50 p.m. They return, slightly tipsy, still laughing. 10:40 p.m. I knock repeatedly, call, and receive no answer. I added a simple caption. This is what heartbroken and alone at home looked like on Friday night. I posted it across Instagram, Facebook, and even LinkedIn. Many of my professional contacts had seen Ethan's original post and reached out, concerned or sympathetic. It was time for the truth to surface. The response was immediate. Within 2 hours, the video had been shared dozens of times. Comments began to shift. Friends who had previously sympathized with Ethan started apologizing to me, realizing the manipulation. Even some of the people in the video, Vanessa and her friends, were tagged, forced to acknowledge the truth publicly. Ethan called, screaming, furious. How could you do this? You've humiliated me. Everyone is seeing this at work. I remained calm, almost serene, though my heart pounded with adrenaline. You humiliated me first. You created a lie that made me the villain in your story. You didn't think there'd be consequences. He demanded I take the video down. I hesitated for only a moment. No, this needed to be seen. You need to understand the weight of what you did. 20 minutes later, he deleted his posts and set his account to private, a gesture that was too little, too late. The damage had already been done. The truth was out. By Wednesday morning, the video had reached his workplace. That's when HR called. A woman's voice, professional, firm, identified herself as Jennifer, the HR director at Ethan's firm. Hi, is this Ethan Parker? I'm calling regarding a social media situation involving one of our employees. Posts have been made that may reflect on the company during work hours. Ethan's voice faltered as he explained, stumbling over words. I stayed quiet, letting him describe the events, ensuring my side would be accurately represented. Jennifer thanked him for his clarity and said she'd follow up if needed. Meanwhile, the emotional aftermath rippled through both our circles. Friends confronted him for his lies. Colleagues questioned his professionalism, and his credibility, both personally and professionally, had taken a hit. Social media had exposed not just a lie, but a pattern of manipulation and carelessness. I watched the fallout unfold from a quiet corner of my apartment, feeling a strange mix of vindication and exhaustion. The truth had been told, and for the first time since Friday night, I could breathe. But there was more to come. The storm wasn't entirely over. The ripple effects of deception, attention-seeking, and betrayal would continue to challenge Ethan, and the social consequences he had created for himself would linger far beyond the screens of his phone. I poured myself a glass of water, sat back, and allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile to form. Justice wasn't dramatic. Justice was calm, precise, and factual. And this time, the narrative belonged entirely to me. The days after sharing the ring footage felt surreal. Social media buzzed, but I no longer checked it obsessively. I let the story unfold without me. Friends reached out to apologize for initially believing Ethan's lie. Even Vanessa and the others sent messages, admitting they had been manipulated into participating in his performance. The tide of sympathy had shifted, and I could finally breathe without the weight of his deceit pressing down on me. Ethan did try to contact me, but I maintained distance. He apologized, sincerely or not, I couldn't tell, but the damage was irreversible. He had not only lied and manipulated, but he had also exposed himself publicly, professionally, and socially. His credibility had suffered. Some of his colleagues confronted him privately, questioning his judgment. Some friends stopped speaking to him. He had created a ripple effect of consequences that no apology could erase. And yet the experience left me stronger. I realized that trust is a fragile, yet fiercely protective thing, and boundaries are essential. I hadn't allowed his manipulation to define me. I had evidence, clarity, and most importantly, my own integrity. A week later, I received a surprising message from a professional contact, someone who had noticed my composure and methodical handling of the situation. He ran a cybersecurity firm and was impressed by my attention to digital evidence and privacy. He offered me a consulting opportunity, something that could potentially grow into a serious project. I hadn't expected a silver lining, but it was there, a positive outcome born from a storm of deception. As for Ethan, the fallout continued quietly. Social media had forced him to confront the consequences of his actions. He had lost friends, credibility, and some professional standing. Vanessa had distanced herself. His world, which he had attempted to manipulate for attention, had corrected itself. I, on the other hand, moved forward. I focused on work, on friends who had proven their loyalty, and on myself. I no longer had to prove my worth to anyone, least of all someone who thought my life, my work, and my integrity were secondary to their need for attention. Occasionally, I reflected on that Friday night, the chaos, the betrayal. I thought about how easily social media could distort reality, and how essential it is to rely on evidence and intuition rather than appearances. That night could have destroyed me emotionally, but instead it became a lesson, a testament to resilience, self-respect, and the clarity that comes from standing firmly in truth. In the quiet of my apartment, I poured myself a cup of tea, watching the evening sun glint across the city skyline. The storm had passed. The air felt lighter, and for the first time in days, I felt an unshakable sense of peace. I hadn't just survived. I had reclaimed my narrative, my power, and my dignity. Ethan's social media antics had backfired spectacularly. I had exposure, vindication, and even a new professional opportunity. The lesson was clear. Manipulation, attention-seeking, and deceit always leave traces. And when you stand grounded in truth, you can navigate the fallout with integrity and grace. Anna Bennett, 30, emergency nurse, survivor of betrayal, and now, quietly, a woman who knew her own strength. The story had ended, but the lessons lingered. Lessons about trust, attention, and the subtle power of truth. And in that lingering light, I knew I would never let anyone redefine my story again.